But the ramifications of what this president said last night about the founders' framework in the Constitution was completely ignored. I am so proud to say that I said that any real news show worth their salt tonight will start their show with what the president said last night about the constitutional framework. And then I get a memo from The Real News, which is a new show that we have on this network at 7 o'clock every night, and that's what they're leading with tonight, Real News. The Constitution is not something you just disregard. Remember the Constitution, what does he call it? He calls it that antiquated charter of negative liberties. And that's almost a direct quote from our president. And that's what's standing in the way. And he can't make any progress. And it's just so darn difficult. Man, he's struggling. He's in there fighting for you, but somebody, even his own party, gets in the way. The president said something that chilled me to the bone last night, and the audience cheered. Watch.
The executive branch also needs to change. Too often it's inefficient, outdated, and remote. That's why I've asked this Congress to grant me the authority to consolidate the federal bureaucracy so that our government is leaner, quicker, and more responsive to the needs of the American people.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I mean, sure, it kind of almost sounds like he's not upholding the oath to preserve and protect the Constitution of the United States. He's just trying to grab some more power. But maybe I misunderstand. Somebody said to me today, "Boy, you're not really giving him the benefit of the doubt." No. No, I'm really, no. I think I did that one about 3 years ago. I stopped doing that after they were just, what was it, pole vaulting and digging trenches under the fences and getting in any way they could. It sounded like our own president was blaming the constitutional framework for America's problems today. But I'm sure it's just me. It's probably nothing. I mean, I always get it wrong. The media is not concerned at all. So that's a tip that maybe we should be concerned. This is why we were asking for a definition of change in the time machine way back in 2008. Last night was a little staggering, and not in a good way. I mean, I stopped drinking too early. If I would have just known that Obama was going to be president, I would have saved some of those blackouts for nights like last night. He threatened to go around Congress yet again last night.
With or without this Congress, I will keep taking actions that help the economy grow. But I can do a whole lot more with your help. Because when we act together, there's nothing the United States of America can achieve.
Yeah. How true it is. When they act together, it's also constitutional. When they don't, it's not. He really wants to work with Congress. He does, but gosh darn it, he just doesn't know how. If they just would agree with him on everything and then just start making, just start saying this word, yes, to him, then he wouldn't have to be dictating all of these things. It's just hard to pass bills. Makes my head hurt. Let's just give him the power to ignore Congress. What we're seeing is from a book that I told you about a long time ago. It was Philip Drew, Administrator. If you read it, congratulations, you know it's one of the worst novels of all time. But it was Woodrow Wilson's favorite novel. He read it 4 times. And I'm telling you, it is playing out before our very eyes. If you read Philip Drew, Administrator, it's so bad, it's free on the internet. If you read that book, you will see somewhere out there in the ether, Woodrow Wilson is celebrating. You may understand the inefficiency the president speaks of. More common term, one we used to use, is kind of old-timey. It's called checks and balances. Yeah, our founders thought, maybe we should throw something in there like, I don't know, a wrench in the spokes of a crazy dictator, when they start moving so quickly, and trying to be more responsive for the American people. That's the way it always begins. Last night was nothing less than a president proposing an end to any and all checks and balances for a president. The founders wisely knew that giving one man too much power was a terrible idea. I don't think you should give me that power, because if you did, I'd make some changes. First of all, I'd have all the people of Hostess on my cabinet, and I'd meet with them. Anyway, this is why Washington rejected the title of king. Too much power in one man's hands only makes it easier for that one man to grab the government and clamp down on the people. All they need is an excuse, a crisis. Hey, I know, like a global economic crisis. No, that could never happen. Wait a minute. George Soros said in the economic crisis in the Financial Times this: it will be an excuse for cracking down and using a strong-arm tactic to maintain law and order, which carried out to an extreme could bring about a repressive political system, a society where individual liberty is much more constrained, which would be a break from the tradition of the United States. Well, at least he knows what our traditions are. He's exactly right. Interestingly enough, he is the same guy who, while I was at Fox, said that the Tea Party and people like me were going to cause, quote, this open society to be on the verge of some dictatorial democracy. He also mentioned that Orwell's book 1984, that we were actually helping make this happen because 1984 was causing our fantasies. Welcome to Fantasy Island. Is this a fantasy? 1984? Tonight we're going to do a show for you that I want you to check every word we say. Don't believe anything that we say, because this is a conspiracy. This is a fantasy. Tonight, don't take anything I say at face value. You do your own homework. You prove it right or wrong. And when you get to the end of that exercise, maybe you'll say, hey, spooky dude, not so fantasy, huh? Not, kind of spooky. Except it's not the Tea Party doing it. It's a government, a big, out-of-control government. And people on both sides are involved and have been for quite some time. But this time, don't worry, this time it's not going to be like the book. No, this time it will be different. But welcome to the Glenn Beck program in GBTV. Tonight is a different kind of program. I want to warn you right off the top, the critics are going to call this program crazy and conspiratorial and everything else in between. That's why I ask you to look at the laws and the regulations being put in place. Look at the incredible technological advancements that are being made and do your own homework. Do not take anything I say at face value. I'm telling you, we've done our own homework. But this is really only important if you can defend this with your friends without bringing up my name or anybody else's name. This is something that you're going to have to say to people. No, I did my own homework. I looked it up. You want to go? Come to spooky Google with me and I'll show you exactly what I mean. You cannot relay this information without knowing it firsthand yourself. We're heading into a very, very scary time. We're headed off a cliff economically. A crisis situation is around the corner. And our governments, not just this one, but all over the world, are making it easier and easier for them to snap into action and not let that opportunity go to waste. But you're going to be surprised at some of the things that are already being done. We have the National Defense Authorization Act. Now, this is something that we talked to you about late last year. This is something that is routinely passed to fund every year the various military operations. But there was kind of an eye bleed provision this year. The military would now have the power to detain terrorism suspects, including U.S. citizens, on U.S. soil and hold them indefinitely without trial. President Obama said he's got some reservations about this bill. Now, here's the thing. I remember the reservations I was thinking is, didn't he say you don't want people scooped up in the middle of the night because it hurts us all? Yeah. He signed it. He signed the bill only after he made sure that it applied to U.S. citizens. He signed it on New Year's Eve, December 31st. No one was paying attention. Obama said that this administration would also not authorize the holding of U.S. citizens without trial. May I ask, was he lying then or is he lying now? Let's take him at his word, though, shall we? Let's say this president doesn't become a brutal dictator. What happens if the next guy does? Why would we bother granting this power in the first place to a president? Remember, Obama promised us this.
We cannot continue to rely only on our military in order to achieve the national security objectives that we've set. We've got to have a civilian national security force that's just as powerful,
No.
just as strong.
No, we don't.
Just as well funded.
No, I don't want that. Anybody here want that? No, anybody. I mean, nobody thinks that's a good idea. No, I don't think we should have a civilian force that is just as well trained and equipped as the military. I couldn't figure this one out for a long time. Where is that? And I remember being on Fox. Did anybody see the show where I was wearing the lederhosen? Edelweiss. And I was talking about AmeriCorps, I think it was. And I said, I think this has got to be AmeriCorps, because that's the way FDR tried to do it. No. These guys are much smarter. When they reduced the troop levels, for instance, in Iraq, they up another level. Independent contractors. They reduce the level of the military, and through the State Department, hire more civilian contractors. It's just as powerful and just as well equipped as the U.S. military. But they don't answer to Congress. They're civilians. They only answer to Hillary Clinton's State Department, or whoever replaces Hillary Clinton. Obama has shown little regard for Congress and the Constitution. On appointments, he just went around Congress.
When Congress refuses to act, and as a result hurts our economy and puts our people at risk, then I have an obligation as president to do what I can without them.
Despite saying this in a 2007 interview, quote, "The president does not have the power under the Constitution to unilaterally authorize a military attack in a situation that does not involve stopping an actual or imminent threat to the nation," end quote. That's Barack Obama. He seems pretty clear. He likes to remind people, a constitutional scholar. Well, just last year, he sent us to war with Libya without bothering to consult Congress. Is that a problem? He called it not a war, a kinetic military action. So I guess it's okay. Earlier this month, Obama announced plans for a national ID card for the internet. Anybody heard of this? Anybody? Raise your hand if you heard of it. Most people. This isn't reported on the news. That's why your friends will not believe it. That's why you have to do your own homework. You ready to wrap your head in duct tape, because your head's going to explode on this one? Instead of having different passwords and accounts for, say, your bank online, GBTV, and hostess.com, which who's got an account at hostess.com? You'll just have one. Obama wants to change that and create an identity ecosystem that will centralize personal information and credentials through the government. This way, you'll have one handy government-approved sign-in. Log in and password, and the government will protect it for you. The administration says this will help improve security and enhance your privacy. Well, I'm sure it will. Homeland Security okayed the monitoring of journalists, and I haven't heard an outrage, call, or cry from any journalists. Excuse me? But it's not just journalists. It's now anyone who uses traditional and or social media in real time to keep audiences aware and informed. They use the word audience there. I like to call it friends. I like to call it followers. If you're on Twitter or you have Facebook and you have anybody following you, well, that's your audience. Do you report things in real time? Of course you do. Who's commenting on stuff? No. Sorry, we don't do real time in the inner space of the World Wide Web and superhighway. We like to keep our comments back about 4 weeks. That's the whole point. Everything's in real time. Congress has also proposed the Internet kill switch. This bill, in an emergency situation, would shut down private sector or government networks in the event of a cyber attack. And, of course, we told you last week about SOPA and PIPA. We'll get more into that later. But you can see the Internet is a very big concern for those in power. Why? Because they do not control it. So they must control it or stop it.